I'm just kind of ready for the next chapter and a new challenge in my life, but I think the reason I decided to announce it when I did was just to have that closure.
Women's basketball has never been more electric. The arenas are packed, the ratings are through the roof, and the names driving that momentum are impossible to ignore. But on June 23, 2026, something happened that had nothing to do with a final score or a highlight reel, and it may end up being the most important moment of this entire WNBA season. Welcome back to WNBA Updates. What we're about to break down isn't just a storyline, it's a shift. A real structural shift in how this league operates, and three players are standing at the center of it. Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, Lexie Hull, three players, three different teams, three very different points in their careers. And yet they came together at the Indiana Fever training facility in what insiders are now describing as one of the most deliberate, coordinated moves the league has seen in years. This wasn't a casual hangout. This wasn't a photo opportunity. According to sources close to the organization, what took place behind those closed doors was the beginning of something that could permanently reshape women's professional basketball from the inside out. So what exactly is going on? Let's get into it. To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand the context surrounding it. The WNBA in 2026 is operating at a level that would have seemed almost unimaginable just 5 years ago. Television ratings have climbed to record highs. Sponsorship deals are rolling in from companies that previously never gave women's basketball a second glance. International audiences are tuning in regularly. Merchandise is selling out. Arenas that once struggled to fill seats are now turning fans away at the door, and a significant portion of that growth traces directly back to one player, Caitlin Clark. Since arriving as a top draft pick, Clark has done something that very few athletes in any sport manage to do. She didn't just perform at an elite level. She brought an entirely new audience into the building. Fans who had never attended a WNBA game before showed up for Clark. Viewers who had never watched a full women's basketball broadcast tuned in because of Clark. Her social media reach rivals that of male athletes in leagues with budgets 10 times the size of the WNBA. From a pure business standpoint, Caitlin Clark is arguably the most commercially valuable player this league has ever seen. But here's where things get complicated, and why this meeting matters so much. Despite generating revenue at a historic pace, Clark, like every other player in the WNBA, continues to operate under a salary structure that doesn't come close to reflecting that value. The same goes for Cunningham. The same goes for Hull. The same goes for nearly every woman who laces up and competes in this league. The financial gap between what these athletes produce and what they take home has been a source of frustration for years. And for a long time, the voices calling for change were scattered, passionate, but not unified. That appears to be changing. At first glance, Clark, Cunningham, and Hull might seem like an unlikely trio. They don't all play for the same franchise. They're not in the same phase of their careers. Their backgrounds and experiences within the league are vastly different. But that's actually the point, and it might be exactly what makes this coalition so powerful. Caitlin Clark brings something that no other player in the league currently possesses: undeniable mainstream star power. Her presence doesn't just fill arenas, it moves markets. When Clark speaks, the sports world listens, not just the WNBA faithful, but casual fans, corporate sponsors, and media executives who control the financial infrastructure of professional sports. That kind of platform is rare. Historically, it's the kind of leverage that creates real institutional change. Sophie Cunningham brings something entirely different, but equally essential: credibility built through years of grinding through a system that has never fully rewarded the effort it demands. The Phoenix Mercury veteran has experienced every layer of the WNBA's structural challenges firsthand. She's navigated the financial pressure that sends so many players overseas during the off-season just to make a reasonable living. She's competed in a league that was steadily gaining popularity, while the players fueling that popularity were still fighting for basics. Cunningham knows the history. She knows where the fault lines are. And she's spent years quietly advocating within union circles for conditions that actually reflect the sacrifice this sport requires. Her voice in this movement isn't just symbolic, it's strategic. Then there's Lexie Hull. The Stanford product and 6th overall pick in the 2025 WNBA draft represents something the other two can't: the perspective of a player who is just beginning to navigate the system. Hull is young enough to still be building her career, but wise enough to already see its limitations clearly. She's seen what structured institutional support looks like from her college experience. She's watched veterans like Cunningham manage financial instability with grace. and she's stepping forward at a moment when the next generation of WNBA players is watching closely to see whether this league will truly invest in their futures. Hull's presence in this alliance sends a message. This isn't just about the stars. It's about everyone coming up behind them. Together, these three represent the full spectrum of the WNBA experience, past, present, and future. And that's precisely what gives their partnership the kind of weight that's hard to dismiss. Sources familiar with the discussions suggest that the concerns driving this alliance are not new. They are long-standing, deeply ingrained problems that players have raised in various forms for decades. But with the league's commercial profile at an all-time high, the argument for change has never been stronger. Player compensation sits at the top of the list. Even with improvements secured through the current collective bargaining agreement, the salary cap in the WNBA remains dramatically out of step with the revenue the league is now generating. Players at the top of the league's earnings still make a fraction of what their male counterparts earn in comparable sports. And more importantly, a fraction of what their actual market value suggests their worth based on the audiences they draw and the products they sell. Travel and working conditions remain a persistent issue as well. The demands placed on WNBA players are comparable to those in any other major professional league. The resources provided, however, often fall significantly short of what those demands require. Recovery, preparation, and long-term physical health are all affected when athletes are stretched thin by schedules and logistics that haven't kept pace with the league's growing profile. The off-season overseas question is also central to this conversation. For years, the financial reality of the WNBA has pushed players to compete in European and Asian leagues during the months when they should be resting and recovering. While those experiences have undeniably made many players better, the system that makes them financially necessary has never been adequately addressed. Leagues abroad often offer better facilities, better pay, and better long-term support structures. That disparity has only grown more glaring as the WNBA's own commercial value has surged. And then there are the longer-term concerns, post-career transitions, player development infrastructure, healthcare, and the overall question of whether this league is building a sustainable professional ecosystem or continuing to rely on player passion to paper over institutional gaps. These aren't complaints. They're calls for the league to match the moment it finds itself in. The timing of this alliance is not accidental. The WNBA is currently navigating one of the most consequential periods in its history. Expansion is on the table. New broadcast and streaming agreements are being discussed. Corporate partners are investing at unprecedented levels. The decisions being made right now in boardrooms, in league offices, at the bargaining table will shape the structure of women's professional basketball for the next decade and beyond. Players have historically had limited influence over those decisions, but the landscape is shifting. Social media has given athletes direct access to their audiences in ways that bypass traditional gatekeepers entirely. Clark's digital reach alone represents a lobbying force that sponsors and media partners cannot afford to ignore. When that voice is combined with Cunningham's institutional knowledge and Hull's generational credibility, the coalition becomes something that league leadership will have to engage with seriously. There are also clear precedents for what athlete-led advocacy can accomplish at the right moment. The USWNT's Equal Pay campaign changed not just their contracts, but the national conversation around women's sports. NBA players have shaped league policy in ways that would have been unthinkable in previous generations. Collective action, when organized and sustained, produces results. The players here appear to understand that, and they appear to be approaching this moment with a level of strategic intentionality that matches the scale of what they're asking for. Nobody outside of the conversations happening in Indiana can say with certainty what specific demands or initiatives will emerge from this alliance. But the direction is becoming clearer. Sources indicate that the focus is not on individual benefit. This is not three athletes using their platforms to negotiate better personal deals. The framing from the beginning has been about all players, the rookies trying to establish themselves, the veterans who built this league before the cameras showed up, and the players who haven't been drafted yet but will inherit whatever structure exists when they arrive. If this coalition succeeds, the effects could extend well beyond the WNBA. Women's professional sports across multiple disciplines are watching. The questions Clark, Cunningham, and Hull are raising about equitable pay, long-term investment, and the fair distribution of revenue in a rapidly growing market are questions that resonate in soccer, tennis, track and field, and beyond. A successful model here could become a template. Corporate sponsors and media partners are watching too. And not just passively. The commercial infrastructure now surrounding women's basketball means that the league's reputation for how it treats its players is directly tied to brand value. Companies investing in the WNBA want to be associated with a league that does right by its athletes. That creates a form of external accountability that didn't exist even 5 years ago. Here at WNBA Updates, we cover everything that moves this league: the games, the stars, the rivalries, the storylines. But every once in a while, something happens that's bigger than any single game or season. What Clark, Cunningham, and Hull appear to be building is exactly that kind of moment. The WNBA has never been more visible. The athletes have never had more leverage. And three of the most credible, impactful voices in the sport are choosing to use that leverage not just for themselves, but for every player who has ever put on a jersey and asked whether this league would truly invest in her future. The answer to that question is still being written. But for the first time in a long time, it feels like the players themselves are holding the pen. Stay locked into WNBA Updates, because this story is just getting started. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think this alliance can produce real, lasting change for WNBA players? We want to hear from you. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and we'll see you in the next one.
Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a video.